Hey, listeners. In this episode, we delve into the remarkable life of Taniya, a woman living with the challenges of brittle bone disease. With honesty and vulnerability, Taniya opens up about the everyday struggles she faces while living on her own, navigating relationships, and contending with additional conditions that have arisen from her disease, such as brain aneurysms and epilepsy. Despite the adversity she confronts, Tanya's unwavering positivity shines through as she shares her determination to seize every moment and embrace life to the fullest. Join us as we explore Tanya's courageous journey, where daring and adventure becomes the guiding forces that propel her forward. So, welcome to Multispective.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So, why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, Tanya?
Well, I am a speaker and author from New York, not like big city New York. I'm from Long Island, New York. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's
Okay.
more suburban. And
Okay.
I'm a
Yeah.
former actress.
Oh, wow. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I went to college actually for theater. And I love being on stage. I love acting. I love stories. But I found in college that because of my disease, I have brittle bone disease, or osteogenesis imperfecta is what it's officially called. But that's a lot for people to say, so I just go with brittle bone disease.
Right.
Um, I'm only 3'11". All the classic plays, there aren't scripts that were written for people of my stature. So I found myself in college playing trolls and dwarves, and there's only so many incarnations of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves one person has to do. So I quickly was like, I'm not. I graduated. I have my degree in theater, but I was like, yeah, I don't
Right.
think this is for me anymore.
Oh. I mean, yeah, the discrimination that exists within the field of acting, it's crazy because you would think though, right? Like it's such a skilled profession. It's not something that anyone can just like, get on stage and do. And you've received all this training, and your reason for not being able to, see it through is because of a physical thing, which I guess is legit in the
Mhm.
field.
But I always argue that, saying these were imagined stories. These were, and half these playwrights, I my dream role is Abigail in The Crucible. It's like my dream role. These playwrights aren't even still alive. Nobody's going to sit down with
Yeah.
Arthur Miller and say, "Is that how Abigail was supposed to look?"
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
But I think I'm at a point where if I go back into it, I'm gonna have to write my own scripts. I'm gonna have to write, but then pitching them and getting the capital to actually turn it into a play is gonna be hard. I mean, my mom told me one day after I was devastated that I didn't get another role, or I couldn't try out for another role or whatever. She said to me, she said, "The greatest story you'll ever tell is your own."
Mm,
And I took that to heart, and that's when I started doing a lot of public speaking.
right. Yeah. Have you ever tried to, like, write your story in the form of a play?
I haven't, but with the book, I may consider turning that into a show.
Right. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's your own rendition of it, and, I don't know if there's ever been a story out there on brittle bone disease. It is something that is just not talked about enough, so hey, this could really make for something new,
Mhm.
and raise awareness on like topics
Right.
that, people just don't know enough about. Right. Yeah, that's great. What did you end up doing after the acting career then when you decided that that was not going forward for you?
I pivoted into speaking, and then, I mean, acting doesn't pay well anyway. So I started to speak and, bring awareness. I went into schools, did anti-bullying workshops and things like that. Um, then I started, in corporate America,
Hmm.
started doing some of that.
Wow, okay.
paper pushing,
Mm.
behind a desk sort of thing.
Right.
And now I'm actually working. Well, I wrote the book, I released the book, and now I'm working with a friend who we are starting a consulting firm.
Wow, okay. For businesses.
Businesses and the individual. I like to say I'm multi-talented.
Yeah, sounds like it, right? You've, like, dabbled in quite a lot of different, things, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. Um, Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Now, you've mentioned that you've got, you've had brittle bone disease. I'm curious,
Mhm.
was this something that you were born with?
Yes. But there's a caveat to that. My parents didn't know. I was born perfectly normal. I was a normal child. I, would run, jump, rope, hopscotch, all those, kid games up until the age of about 6. Then out of nowhere, I broke my wrist. And then it was an ankle. And every couple of weeks, I was in the hospital. My mom was taking me to the emergency room, and they would take an x-ray, and had another broken bone. They actually investigated my parents. They separated us. They had me in an exam room and had my parents somewhere else down the hall, because they thought my parents were abusing me. And doctors at the time, I was born in 1980, so at the time they couldn't make sense of it. And I mean, I I think I get it in hindsight, looking back, very strange fractures, because the one where they thought my parents were spanking me, I had broken my tailbone. I had a new baby sister, and my mom laid her on the couch, and I was looking at her, and my mom liked those. I don't know if you remember, but those little footy pajamas that had
Oh
like the
gosh, yeah.
on the bottom. For whatever reason, she loved those.
Yeah.
And my sister was born in November, so it was winter time. She had me in one of those, and I went to readjust my position on the couch, and my feet slid from underneath me, so I fell down on the floor and screamed about my broken butt. And I remember the doctor came in the room, and he had a man in a suit with him, and I was like, "Yeah, this isn't normal." And
Mm.
the man in the suit asked me, he said, "Mommy and daddy spank you, don't they?" And I was like, "No, they barely yell at me. And where are they? Bring them back."
Yeah. Was this, like, something that was not really known back then?
Yeah, it was very, I mean, they're still finding new things about it. There was very little awareness around it in the
Mm,
80s.
right. From what I have read, that doctors are able to sort of, pick up on these signs of brittle bone disease right off the bat when the child is still in the belly of the
Yeah,
mother. I'm guessing, well, for you, you hadn't had any injuries up until that point, so there was no way the doctors could have diagnosed it.
right. Yeah. And they're much better. Scanning technology, ultrasounds and things are much better. And they go by measurements and things like that, and bone density.
Hmm.
And that's come a long way. I mean, I'm glad it has, but I'm 43. I'll be 43 next month. So it's like there was a lot of time in between, my birth, and a lot of trial and error, and I mean, there are still parents today that still fight accusations of abuse. If an unskilled or unknowledgeable doctor, when it comes to OI, um, sees the child repeatedly, there have been horror stories where, the baby's been removed by child and family services and things like that, to try to, and I understand it on a logical level. I
Hmm.
understand they're trying to protect the child, but there's just not enough awareness out there.
Right. That's crazy. Do you know what the numbers are?
I think when I was born, it was like one in every 60,000 live births, I think, at the time. I think now it's up to about 20,000, or a little less than 20,000.
Hmm.
So it's still a rare disease, but not as rare as when I was diagnosed.
Right.
And I was diagnosed strictly by accident. It was only because I had a broken wrist and I went to the doctor. It was time to get the cast off. Woohoo, it was the summer. I was excited. And I don't know if you've ever had a cast, but they use a big like saw thing to kind of cut through it, and then they pry the two parts apart, and then you can move your limb. You can just pick it up
Mm.
out of the fragments of the cast. And what had happened was they sawed it open, and the doctor started to pry the two halves apart, and I immediately felt my arm re-break. I was like, and because I had been breaking so often and so frequently, I still to this day can identify a break before I even get an X-ray. And I started screaming. I said, "You just broke my arm! I broke! I feel the fire! I feel the fire!" And the doctor was like, "Your arm's not broken." And I was like, "Yes, it is." Sure enough, an X-ray, it was broken. And then that's when doctor was like, there was one doctor, and he said, "I think I know what this is."
Mm. Can you tell me what did you feel in that moment when a doctor was finally able to put a name to it? Was it relief for you? Like finally there's some like explanation, or was it, oh shit, like
It
this
was,
is real? Mhm.
believe it or not, I was only about 6 years old, but I remember being so relieved, not that I had a diagnosis, but okay, there's a why. I'm the person
Mm.
that always looks for the why did that happen? I'm a scientist at heart,
Yeah.
because they were always questioning me, well, what did you do? How fast did you run? They're stupid questions. And it's
Mm.
like, finally now I can say, oh, I broke my leg because I have brittle bone disease.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Did that start becoming a part of your identity though? Like I'm not, did that start becoming the reason for a lot of things?
I think me and OI though, we're so intricately intertwined that there's like almost no way. I tried not to, but I would always, there were things that I knew, and then I ended up in a wheelchair because
Hmm.
my legs just couldn't, I couldn't even stand without suffering a fracture. So it was part of my identity. And I don't think at the time I recognized it enough to bother me.
Hmm. At what point did that turn for you then?
Probably around high school.
Was it a specific incident, or would you say it was like an experience that you had in school in terms of socializing and yeah.
I think I went through what everybody goes through around 15. I just wanted to be like everybody else. And my I was always different.
Hmm.
I was always undeniably different. I was in a bright pink wheelchair, and that didn't bother me until, yeah, it was about high school. My family, unfortunately, we um mounting medical bills and things. I talk about this in the book. We experienced homelessness.
Hmm.
So my parents had to find a school. We moved into a motel, and my parents, they used my grandparents' zip code, who lived in this really nice community, and they sent me to school there. I was in this bright pink wheelchair. I wasn't even, I probably was at my final height then. And I was like, I just want to be like everybody else. And demographically, most of the kids, I was one of, I think, three, maybe four kids that were African American.
Hmm.
So I almost didn't have an identity. I was like finding myself,
Hmm. Yeah.
in this place where nobody looked or moved like me.
Right. Yeah, that must have been so difficult. Was it hard to make friends? Was it hard to find relationships or, have partners at that time?
I did not. Relationships has been a tricky issue for me. Um, Friendships, not so much. I had my core group of friends, and then I started in their theater program. And theater kids, they are your tribe, and they will hold you down, tried and true. They are.
Mm.
That's part of the joy of being in theater. You always have like a group,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. But there was just this. You have to always explain to people. And I felt like there was so much to explain.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, like, always having to, like,
Right.
relive that, re-explain it again and again. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when somebody sees you and I don't think I broke anything in high school. By that point, my fractures had plateaued. They typically do that after puberty. So my fracture rate went down drastically.
Mm. So, okay, let's go back a little bit because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are not too sure exactly what is brittle bone disease. So, can you explain to our listeners what is it?
It is a genetic disorder, and it affects how the body produces collagen. And typically it's either one or two things. Your body makes insufficient quality or insufficient quantity.
Right.
And your entire body is made of collagen. Like
Right.
literally hair, nails, heart, lung. In my in my case, not just my bones were fragile. They ended up finding out later that I had a fragile, I say fragile, but vessel in my brain. And I suffered a brain hemorrhage at 23 years old.
Mm. So it really, really like one thing leads to another to another. Like collagen is just like a core component of like our existence.
Yeah.
Are there any treatments for this?
So, yes, for bone density, they use bisphosphonates and a lot of the osteoporosis drugs. They give kids, when they came out, my doctor literally told me I was too old for it, that it wouldn't help me, because they came out in late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, they give infusions to help bone strength. But I say doctors aren't looking deep enough, because when you think, just because of my lived experience, and I know that I've had problems in other areas, it's not just about strengthening the bones.
Right. Is there nothing that can be done to enhance or increase the quality or the quantity of collagen?
As far as I know, right now, not. There may be some research, and I'll have to look into that. But there's nothing that's FDA approved and available. Like, here you go, you can take this, and we've cured it.
Right. You mentioned earlier that it's a genetic disease. Is there anyone in your family you would say that that has this in your
No.
line?
So when I was young and we got the diagnosis, my mom actually went to a geneticist. No, nobody in my family has it. Um, but what they said is that you can have a spontaneous mutation where the gene responsible for making the collagen kind of goes rogue, and or has fault in the way it mutates.
Right. And typically that would happen at what stage during pregnancy? Like I would assume because nowadays doctors can basically tell a mother like that their child that's a fetus, potentially even within the first 3 months of pregnancy, that their child may have certain disabilities. And so Is this something that can be detected at that stage?
They can detect it in utero. If the mother or either one of the parents has OI, they have a 50-50 chance of passing it to their unborn child. And I remember when my sister got pregnant, I have two nieces. And when she was pregnant with my oldest, with my oldest niece, I told her, I said, have them check. And she's like, "Oh, the doctor told me because I don't have it, I don't need to worry about it." I was like, "No, because it may be in our, you know,
Yeah,
bloodline, we just don't know. We're just
right,
assuming I'm a spontaneous mutation."
right.
But,
Exactly.
we know my mom didn't have it and my dad didn't have it. They did test them for that. And my sister does not have it. And
Mm,
both of my nieces are perfectly happy, healthy, and driving
mm.
their mother crazy.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So, can you tell me a little bit about, like, what has it been like for you? How many times have you had, like, a broken bone? What are some of the other challenges that you've experienced with this? Bones and even non-bone related.
I have broken to date about 104 bones. I used to keep count because I was just like, woohoo, you feel like you get a medal or something, like
Yeah.
a badge or
Yeah.
something.
Wow.
Um, and I used to be able to say that I didn't never broke fingers or toes. That was true until I went to Greece. I just went to Greece this past fall and I tripped on the Acropolis and broke my
Oh.
toe. Um, I because of the my biggest challenge right now is because of that brain hemorrhage that I had in college. And I'm lucky to even be here. Because I've been having these headaches and eventually that vein or vessel in my head just gave way and I bled in my brain. And it took an 11-hour surgery to save my life. But blood is never supposed to come in contact with the brain. And
Mm.
when blood actually touches the brain as an organ, it leaves scar tissue. So that led me down this road of where I now have epilepsy. And I think more than the brittle bones, I say this to my friends all the time. I break 100 more bones in a heartbeat. That was easy to never have to have another seizure.
Mm. How are there certain triggers for it now?
We're trying to sort that out. I had been seizure free for like 8 years because I had surgery. Um, there was all this neurological innovation, right? They can actually take out the scar tissue. So I had this hot shot doctor, and he was like, I can go in there and just get the scar tissue, and and we'll remove the seizure foci, and you'll be fine. And I was for like 8 years, and then my seizures came back, and they came back with like a vengeance. I think it's I think it might be there might be some hormonal connection, because it always seems to occur around um my period, my monthly cycle.
Mm.
And it's not I'm not photo sensitive, like when it comes to like flashing lights or any of those things. It has never been that. But I just this past year totaled a car. That's how I knew they came back, because I was driving and was going to Target, my favorite place. And I went to turn into the parking lot and crashed into a tree and was found unconscious. So then it was like, oh boy.
Wow. Yeah, that's really intense.
I had a problem with my heart valve. That's a common problem that people have, but it can't be understated that I have this underlying condition that has affected every inch of my body.
Mhm. Yeah. And again, like, all of this comes back down to the brittle bone.
Right.
Hmm. 104, but I mean, like, everything right now is, like, piled on, but 104 bones, I guess I'm guessing some of them you'd experienced more than once, the same bone being broken. Which one would you say is the most painful?
Femurs hurt, but when I broke my elbow, that was probably the most painful.
Your elbow.
Have you ever whacked your elbow and you're like, "Ow, why does it hurt?" I don't know why that area is so sensitive,
Yeah.
but yeah, I broke my elbow. I had a fall actually out of my wheelchair, and I broke a couple bones, but my elbow was one of them, and that definitely hurt. I had to have surgery to have that fixed.
Wow. More than a rib and a collarbone or your hip. Those are the areas, I guess, where the movement, the breathing, and all of that is, like, happening, so that's very intrusive, is the elbow.
Mhm.
Interesting. And, uh, like, how many surgeries have you had to have from them versus, like, natural healing?
I've had dozens of surgeries. Um, I was lucky. I didn't have to have a lot of times. Yeah, well, what they do is when I was young, I was about 7, they did my rotting surgery. They insert metal rods into the center of the bone and it sounds crude in, in the way they do it, but when you think about it, it's actually a good idea. It corrects any sort of or prevents any further bowing because if you see like my arms aren't
Mm,
straight and things like that. So it prevents that or corrects that and it reinforces from the inside. So the idea is that it'll slow the fracture rate. So I had that done when I was young. So that helped a lot with healing. And because the rod is in there, they put it in a cast and it just,
heals on its
it
own.
heals.
Yeah.
Joints, I think, are a little difficult. Yeah, my elbow is I don't remember why I was only like 8 or 9 years old, but why I needed surgery on that one. But I haven't had many surgeries where it was like because I fractured.
Right.
A lot of them were preventative.
Right. Wow. That's yeah, that's I can't I mean, I've broken one wrist and I just remember, like, the excruciating pain from that, just not being able to sleep for days on end. Do you ever I mean, this is me asking out of naivety because I really don't know what this is like, but
That's fine.
does it ever get easier? Does it ever feel less painful at any point? Does it ever feel like, "Okay, been there, done that." Do you desensitize to it?
So I can only speak for myself.
Mhm.
Yes. I was in I was in Greece and when I broke my toe, it was like it's funny because I can always identify when something's broken. It's like, "Oh, that's broken," you know? So I get to the point where it's like, I don't even need to go to the hospital. I just need to make sure it heals correctly.
Right.
You got some tape, a couple ace bandages, those sorts of things. Um,
Yeah,
but it's that awareness of because I know what it feels like.
yeah. So it becomes a little bit more tolerable to an extent. You
Don't
know
get me wrong,
exactly
it
what
still hurts.
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's crazy. Um, collagen is also to do with hair, teeth, nails. How have those areas been affected?
So, I haven't had much problems with my teeth, thank goodness. There actually is a lot of people that have osteogenesis imperfecta also have dentiogenesis imperfecta, which means that it's brittle bones of the teeth, essentially. So their teeth are very fragile. I mean, I've heard of one girl recently was eating potato chips, I think, and she said her teeth were crumbling. So I luckily was fortunate enough I didn't have that.
Mhm.
My hair, I think, is fairly normal. Might be the only thing that's
Yeah. What about your eye? So I read somewhere online that a lot of people with OI experience um, a change in color in their iris in their eye.
okay. So it's not the iris, right? Okay.
Okay.
Blue sclera.
Yes, that's the name.
It
Yeah.
is the whites of the eyes have a bluish tint
Okay.
and always will. And I believe the reasoning behind that is because it's not so much a color change, it's that the sclera is thinner because of a collagen deficiency. So you're actually seeing a little further behind what is inside, which blood as it runs through your body is blue.
Could you explain that again?
You're actually, if you look at like the veins on your hands or somebody that's very very fair skin or
Yeah.
something, you'll notice they're bluish
Yeah.
because blood when it's in the body is
Is
blue.
blue.
When it's
Right.
when it's exposed to oxygen is when it becomes red. So you're seeing more of what's happening underneath because it's thinner.
Oh, that's so interesting. Does it affect your vision?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. Can you tell me how much impact does it take for a bone to break? Do you have to fall down or hit into something for a bone to break? Or can it be a cough or a sneeze that can cause it? Or simply being stagnant that can cause it?
So now, like I said, after puberty, my fracture rate has declined greatly. Um, there was a time, I mean, I had a bout of bronchitis and I broke a rib because I was coughing too much. And I broke my wrist because I went to sneeze, covered my mouth, my head hit my hands, and my wrist broke. So it doesn't take huge impact. But then I've done things. It's so weird. The body is so interesting because I've done things where I'm like, damn, I know that broke. And, I wake up with a bruise and I'm like, oh, oh my God,
Yeah.
bruise.
Wow. So do you find that like a lot of the times you are really conscious and really intentional and really aware of the things that you do to prevent a bone break, or do you continue to just go about your day as normal and if it happens it happens?
I go about my day as normal as possible. And if it happens, because there's there's only so much I learned this early. There's only so much I can do to prevent them. And some of it would involve preventing actual life, you know?
Mm.
So I try not to, I try to be, yes, careful, but then I do crazy things like, I took a, I took an aerial arts class, an acrobatic class. And I did that a couple times and I loved it. So I'm like hanging from, you know, the
Wow.
ribbons in the sky.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. If I hit
Right.
the floor, that's gonna be bad, but
Yeah. That's amazing though. Like I love that you still put yourself out there and you do the things that you're curious about. Do you feel like that's kind of also affected the way that you see the world, or maybe like more you appreciate certain things differently from an ordinary person who doesn't think twice about things?
I think because I've had to, you always I think most people, you always look at risk versus benefit. What am I risking versus what am I getting out of this?
Hmm.
And for me, I learned early on, it's like the worst thing that was gonna happen to me. was I was going to break something, be in a cast, and not be able to get wet for 6 to 8 weeks. But the risk of not doing for me, and I can only speak for me because there are people that,
Yeah, have it really
can't
different.
operate the same way. But the risk of not doing or not trying things is much greater. And then I live alone. So that was also the other thing. I moved on my own. So I was always like climbing on counters to get things out of cabinets, and watching me cook is like watching a step aerobics class. You go
Right.
up the step stool, down the step stool, up, down.
Yeah, yeah. Eh, walk me through that. Like, you said that you moved out. That must have been a bit of a challenging decision, not only for you, but even for your caretakers, your mom, your dad. What was that like? Like, you were getting all the support from, was it your mom growing up?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, my mom had passed away. So she, got me through 29 years of life, and God bless her. Everything I am is because of who she was.
Mm,
Because she would say things to me like, you're not gonna meet friends sitting here, or things like that. She walked a very fine line between helping versus hindering. She knew the balance, and she would help me only enough to make sure that I'd be able to function and do things on my own. And after she passed away, I think we all were just like, okay, it's time we got it. Dad went somewhere. My sister took my nieces and she moved. I was like, okay, we're leaving the family home. And it was like, I kind of felt because of the way she parented that I could do this. It wasn't
mm.
anybody had to talk me into or give me confidence, because nobody took that away from me.
Right. Do you think that that was intentional, like, all along, that was her plan?
Yeah.
Did you ever have that conversation with her?
I never got to. The one conversation we did have is, I'll never forget. She I could never reach anything. We lived in the most inaccessible house for a handicapped child. Okay. In the 80s, there were stairs. My wheelchair couldn't fit through the bathroom doors. It was like,
Wow.
whatever. So I just spent all my time on the floor. And I remember asking my sister, Ashley, I said, can you get me a juice box out of the fridge? So she got one, and she got one for herself, and she put hers on the, she took hers and walked out of the room, but she put mine on the counter. And I was like, I'm down here on the floor. You could at least handed it to me.
Yeah.
So I'm, like any kid, and most moms can relate to that scream, like, somebody's dying.
Yeah.
And my mom had, she had no problem if I really needed help, like I was on the toilet and needed to get off, and I screamed like that or whatever. But she came in and she was like, "What's the matter?" And I was like, "Can you just hand me the juice box?" And she was kind of like, she has this look of, "That's why you called me in here." So she handed it to me. And she said to me, and in that moment, I will never forget this conversation. She said, "The world is not going to come down to, is never going to come down to meet you. You're going to spend the rest of your life having to find ways to rise up to meet the rest of the world." And that was the most profound thing. And I mean, that set my trajectory from there on out. I was like, okay, I've got to find ways to do this, And that's when I
Mm.
just like was kind of like, it's no big deal to climb up on a chair,
Yeah. Yeah.
find innovative ways.
Yeah. Do you feel like that sort of changed the way that you even, um, looked at yourself? As in, from thinking, "I can't do this," to "I can," from thinking, you know, I don't know, like, the world is crumbling down all around me, to "Heck no." Like, I'm gonna take full control over everything from here on out.
Yeah, it was definitely empowering.
Mm.
It was definitely empowering to, because you know what? The person that I loved and looked up most to in this world believed in me. And not everybody has that, and I get it, and I feel for those people, but she believed enough in me and my brittle body
Mm.
to tell like 12-year-old me that I'm gonna have to find ways to rise up to read the arts. Like, okay, challenge met, boss.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you also get a lot of like love and empathy though? Like, did you feel that a lot around you with your mom and your family?
Yes.
Yeah. So like on the really, really hard days, being feeling comfortable to be able to like turn to her and like finding that motivation to like, you know, keep going.
Yeah, she was very loving. She was very she told me once, and my sister has, I think my sister said this too, or something like this, when your child hurts, you hurt. And because she had this very unique understanding of what I feel, or what it felt like. And my mom had never broken a bone, neither had my dad.
Mm.
And I just remember, yeah, feeling on the hard days. She was the boss, man. She was my champion. If I needed it, she got it. It didn't matter how many people she had to harass or yell at, or you know,
Yeah.
she was always fighting with insurance companies, principals. It didn't matter.
Yeah. That's amazing. And you mentioned that it was you were 29 years old when she passed.
Yeah,
What was that like for you?
that was really, really hard. I honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I I wanted to die. I was lost in my grief, and I felt so unworthy. There were all My mom was a beautiful soul. I mean, she parented two amazing children through the trials, and got us through, navigated many, many storms. She's the hero in my story. I tell everybody this. If you're looking for a book with a hero, she's it. Um, but I felt like I had been given so many chances, so many quote unquote miracles, and I had heart surgery. Was the exact same heart surgery that ended up costing my mom her life. And I was like, this isn't fair. Like, this woman um volunteered at the food pantry. She helped other women.
Mm.
And I'm 29 years old, and I felt like I hadn't done anything with my life. And I was like, if there's a God, he somehow screwed this up.
Mm. And what did you do like there on out then to cope with those hard days? Like how did you were you able to like find, you know, those dialogues, those have those internal dialogues, have those conversations, hear your mom's voice, think about what would my mom say to me right now? Were you able to sort of like how did you find that within you?
There was a miracle had happened a year before. My sister had my niece Gianna, and literally, Gianna was born July 4th, 2008. And at the time when she announced that she was pregnant, she was like, or when she told people she was going to have, she was 23, and it looked like she was 23. She still lived with her parents. It looked like all the reasons why you shouldn't have a baby, you know.
Mm.
And but Gianna was the biggest miracle of that time, because my mom died July 3rd, 2009, 364 days later. So
Mm.
literally, we came home from removing my mom from life support, and my sister put together a 1 year birthday party for the next day, because Gianna still deserved to be celebrated. And she was a year old, and she loved me fiercely, and I could feel my mom in that. And I was like, this is why I'm here. I don't have the right to take this from her. She's going to need me. Ashley might need help. And my family is still great. I miss this part of me, but it wasn't easy. I had a lot of the credit goes to Gianna being there, because if she weren't, I don't know, I was really, really depressed.
Mm.
And when people say to me, people will ask, "Oh, what's the hardest thing you had to deal with?" My mom's death, hands down.
Yeah. More than all of those physical
Right.
pains. Yeah. This seems to be like something that's really recurring in a lot of the episodes that I've had in the past. Like, so many of my guests in the past have felt this deep, deep connection to someone, and they've lost them one way or the other, and have all come back to say that that's been the hardest part of a really long and arduous journey. And yeah, I think that this is like that human to human bond and connection that nobody can ever take away from someone else, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I say this to people all the time. I'm like, I don't know who I'd be if I had a different mother,
Mm.
because I was strong because she made me strong. She gave me the freedom to yell and cry and be upset about stuff when I needed to be, but she reminded me to get back up.
Mm.
She reminded me that I was tougher than this.
Yeah. What were some of the coping mechanisms that you experimented with throughout your journey, um, in terms of like maintaining, or, or yeah, just like maintaining through it all? What were some of the ways that you coped?
I tried to always surround myself with people. I mean, even if that meant that I was probably going to do something that was going to break something, because when you're alone with your thoughts is when that why me, why this, that pity,
Mm.
self-pity happens because you're by yourself.
Yeah, I like that. So, did you experiment with like, I mean, you mentioned that, self pity happens when you're by yourself. So, was that something that you always tried to do, surround yourself with people? Or did you just like learn how to have those conversations, like healthier conversations with yourself? Or like give reason for certain things, look at things more objectively, journaling,
I
therapy. Yeah.
Yes, okay. So I journal like a madman. It's easier now because I live alone, so I don't have to worry about anybody reading them.
Yeah.
I journal like a madman, and I've been to therapy. I still go to therapy. Um, as humans, it's easy to think we've got it all figured out
Mm.
until you realize
Yep.
you
Nope.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you walk me through like the financial aspect of it? Like you're in the States, so insurance is not the easiest. It doesn't come by really easy. How did you and your family, you mentioned you experienced homelessness at one point. Can you walk me through that whole process financially?
Yeah, financially, especially when I was young, it got really tough because insurance, even when you have it, they pick and choose what they're going to cover. I have brittle bone disease. I'll never forget a couple years ago. And my doctor was like, we really need a bone density scan on you. And my insurance was like, we're not paying for that. You're too young for a bone density. It's like, no, you have to
Yeah.
be 40 to get for us to approve a bone density scan. There's all these little caveats, even when you have insurance, that they try to get out of paying for stuff. I mean, my mom, like I said, was fierce when it came to fighting insurance companies. She was always on the phone talking to adjusters, arguing denials, all sorts of things.
Mhm.
Because, and then when I was a kid, They're like, "1 wheelchair a year, don't grow." It's like,
Oh my
"My
god.
wheelchair doesn't fit anymore."
Yeah.
So you always have to, yeah, the states don't make it easy because you have to keep insurance. And, I've been lucky enough to always find jobs that have health insurance because I know I need it. Because even
Mm.
with my anti-epileptic medication, some of the stuff is just so overpriced. It's like there's no way one drug I'm on, I did the math on it. It's like 1,200 and something dollars for 30 pills. I'm like, "Justify that for me, please.
Mm. Yeah,
What are
that's
in these pills to
ridiculous.
charge
Yeah.
$1,200 for 30 of them?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, wow. Can you tell me about that time when you and your family were rendered homeless?
It was Yeah, it was hard. We were renting that very inaccessible house,
Yeah.
and, I think my mom that's the one thing she didn't always share with me. My dad sometimes, in and out of work, would have a job, wouldn't have a job, would get a new job, look for a better job.
Mm.
Um, and I think the bills just became too much. She worked as a prison guard, so she was working for the state because she knew that state insurance, government
Mm.
issued healthcare, or not government issued, um, government employees were entitled to like premium top of the line healthcare. But the bills, co-pays and things like that. So I think the bills were just mounting and things weren't getting paid on time. And then we got evicted Halloween night.
Wow. And so where did you go after that? Straight to a motel or
We drove around, and my mom, I talk about it in the book, because being a prison guard, she like knew all the um all the motels in the area that were known for like prostitution and like seedy things. So she was like, "Oh no, can't go here."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, we went to a motel, and my mom, my dad, my sister, um, all were in a 2-bedroom motel, but we were together.
And how long were you there for?
That really went on. We went back. We I can't remember, because the whole time we didn't get into a house again until I was out of high school. So that was like my whole high school experience. But we spent time in the motel. Then we spent time with my mom's parents, who didn't really want us there. Then we spent time with my dad's mom,
Mm.
and then right after I got out of high school, we had finally
Found
gotten
out.
home.
Mm. You mentioned that your dad was moving around quite a lot of jobs. Was he able to ultimately like provide the support, the financial support, and even other support? Um, how does your dad fit into the story?
He tried. I mean, my dad did the best he could with what he had, with what he knew.
Mm.
You know, he Me and my dad, we made amends, because I remember being so, and he didn't tell me this, right? I remember being so upset because my dad wouldn't hug me. My dad wouldn't give me a hug, and I had a little sister, and he'd pick her up and throw her around and play with her and tickle her, and I was like, "Why are you forgetting about me?"
Mm.
And he told me when I was about 30, maybe 35, we sat down, we had a conversation, and he said, "I was afraid to touch you. I didn't want to break you." And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Mm. This is one of those things where it's so difficult because again, like, as a parent, you wanna do what's best for your child
Right.
and what's in the best what you deem to be the best interest in the child. But sometimes, I think it's a lot of the times there was that miscommunication, there was or rather a lack of communication between parent and child because they think they know what's best for the child and the child doesn't know enough. However, sometimes all it takes is communicating, just asking the child, "Is it okay? How do you feel?" Or, even if he had addressed it when you were younger, like, "I'm scared to pick
Right.
you up because I might hurt you." Would you be able to offer your input and be like, "I would rather have that hug and potentially maybe be hurt than not have that hug at all," which could have maybe potentially like prevented years of um, just heartache.
And animosity. I mean, my dad
Mm,
was always physically present. He went to all my doctor's appointments. When I talked about the rotting surgery. Well, for that, they put you in what was then known as a body cast. So it goes up to your navel and it's both legs are cast at the same time. And there's a bar in between to, like a handle. So he
mm,
was the one that carried me whenever I needed to be picked up and, put in the van or picked up and moved.
mhm.
So he did do those things.
Yeah, yeah.
And looking back, I see what he wanted out of this. I know he wanted I understand his fear. He's still scared now.
Mm,
Not to hug me, but just as a person, he's just scared.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's a really tough one. I mean, it's nice to know though that he tried within the capacity that he felt he could, right? And give you like everything he possibly could within his, scope, I suppose. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um Now we touched upon this a little bit before. Um I would like to know a little bit more about your love life, relationships. Tell me a little bit about that. What's that been like for you like throughout your whole life?
I My love life right now is, and I don't know, for the past 10, hell, the past 2 decades has been non-existent.
Okay.
It was when I was in high school, it was really I don't know, it was hard being the girl in the wheelchair, right? And I didn't walk full time until I was 29.
Hmm.
And there was there's no rule book. And I wish somebody would have said, here's how you date as a disabled woman,
Yeah.
because you have to, I'm online, I'm on these dating sites and, you meet a guy and then there's all this, or swipe right, right? And there's all this anxiety over, okay, how am I going to tell him? I have to tell him, I have a physical disability. Even though my fracture rate has plateaued, I definitely am not of average height. You
Hmm.
know, I live alone. I'm fully independent. I don't need anybody to take care of me or things like that. But sometimes I think if you say and that's probably just a fear in my mind, right? If I start to divulge these key details, this part of my life, this is somebody that's going to think that I'm going to need,
Hmm.
I'm looking for a caretaker, which I'm not. And that makes it, I don't know, it used to give me such anxiety. I was talking to this guy, and I know this happens to everybody, and or I know this happens to everybody, but I was talking to this guy, Craig. Well, he was 6'5", so first we had to get over that hurdle. Had to be like, "Hey, okay, so just so you know, I'm 3'11".
Yeah.
My friend told me, he's like, "You're gonna need an elevator for him." And I told him, and he seemed not to mind. We had plans to meet, and I was like, "Okay, so I'm gonna go meet the 6'5" guy. We're gonna see how this goes." But he
Yeah.
canceled on me the day of and then completely ghosted me. So things like that happen. And then it's hard not to let that be, oh, you know, what if I hadn't have told him? Well, you can't marry somebody you've never seen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's one of those things that just ends up becoming, like, tough on so many fronts. What about introductions, like friends introducing you or meeting someone organically? Have you tried that before?
Yes. And well, my friend group is it's two people.
Okay.
I kept my circle so small that it's now just a dot. Kind of like,
Yeah.
but what was what was I saying? Yeah, I mean, meeting somebody organically sounds great, but I've got to be in the situations where those will happen. Those organic meetings will happen.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, I did speed dating once. That was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I do try, but I think maybe it's just I'm at the point where I'm like, it doesn't have to. I'm okay.
Mm.
I'd like someone, but I don't need someone.
Yeah.
And I think once I stop looking is probably the moment I'll find the person.
Mm. Yeah, I love that.
Because there's all this energy and like, all right, is this guy? What's he saying?
Yeah.
Check your phone. I do a lot of things by myself. The trip to Greece, I went totally by myself.
Wow. Can you tell me some of the other, like, really, like, bold, risky things that you did that you, like, were you surprised yourself?
Surfing.
Damn, girl. You've done more than me. I've never done aerial yoga, never surfed. Barely, maybe just traveled, like, once or twice on my own. That's amazing.
No, yeah.
Surfing.
I woke up. I think it was like one day. And here's my thing. This might be something I should work out in therapy. The more if it's something that somebody's ever said I can't do, shouldn't do, the more I want to do it.
Love it.
And I remember calling around a couple summers ago, pre-COVID, like so it was at 2019. I was calling around all these places on Long Island, these surf schools. Will you teach me how to surf? Well, the minute you tell them that you're disabled, they were like, no, 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 well, we can't. And then I found this one company and they were like, yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. And I went out there, drove out to the really pretty part of Long Island and got a surf instructor and started, I've skied. I just did that.
Wow.
Because I always say, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to break a bone. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. That's so great, though. I love that you were just such a bubbly ball of energy. Like, you are okay to make fun of, like, the situation of yourself. You're okay to throw yourself in these difficult activities. Like, n nothing's about to stop you. I love it. Like,
Thank you.
how did you find this attitude? Like, I can barely even get through that. Like, I go through such dark moments sometimes in my own life, and it's so hard to shake myself out of it. But, like, how do you do it?
Because I've seen how hard life can be. And I know how hard, I write in the book, my mom had a motto, play and break. And that's how I lived my life. The results of me, I don't know, sneezing could be the exact same as me going out and trying to surf I know which one sounds more fun.
Hmm.
So it was like I couldn't live my life in that or wouldn't live my life in that state of fear. I mean, hell, I have to climb on a ladder to change a step to change a
Yeah,
light
yeah,
bulb,
yeah. Yeah.
so when you look at the world, it's for me, it's like everything is dangerous.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna have some
Exactly.
fun while I'm here.
No, I love it. That's such an amazing attitude to have, and I feel like, again, like, I guess for other normal people, we just take these things for granted, right? We live in fear, and we don't appreciate the things that we do have around us. We do get wrapped up in the hustle bustle of the world of life and get stuck in that little rat race and forget about like the little joys of life.
Mhm.
We don't seek the things that necessarily make us happy because we're hoping for something somewhere later down the line. But you seem to have this kind of like, I'm just going to do it right now. I want to do it. I feel it. I'm just going to try it out. And again, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? And that's amazing.
Life is too short to wait. My trip to Greece, it was supposed to be for my 40th birthday. And it was booked for July of 2020, but then we all know what happened March of 2020. So by July, nobody was going
Mm.
anywhere. And I had to reschedule. And I wanted, well, aside from the food, I wanted to eat my way through Greece. But the one thing I wanted to accomplish was I wanted to get to the top of the Acropolis. Because when I learned about the Parthenon and about the Greek gods and goddesses, I was a 12-year-old little girl stuck in a wheelchair, told you'll never walk.
Hmm.
Told walking's not for you. I remember a doctor actually said, walking's not for you. It's like, huh? That makes no sense. And I remember just as like a kind of homage to my past, I wanted to climb to the top of the Acropolis. And I did it. I tripped, I broke my toe, but I went back to the hotel and asked them for tape
Wow.
and just taped it up.
Wow. Look at you. No, that's amazing. Like that's a real inspiration story. Like, wanting to do something and not letting anything get in the way. Broken toe, which is the one thing that you need to get around. Nope, just gonna put some tape and keep going. Like that's amazing. Such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about this book of yours, this memoir.
It is my memoir. It's called Perfectly Broken: My Life with Brittle Bone Disease and Finding Peace in the Pieces. It's currently available on Amazon. And it talks about that. And that's what it is. It is, there are all sorts of different things that fall apart, aren't right. But the broken parts, one thing I can attest to, still work. You may have to make it a unique way of doing things, but there's no reason to give up. And that's what I think my whole finding peace was about. You know, I may be fractured. I may, when,
Mm.
if archaeologists ever get around to looking at my body, they're gonna be like, what's this plate here? Why is there a screw in that? What happened? Where is this Martian from? It's only a 3 foot,
Yeah.
but the broken parts still all work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. It's available on Amazon.
Yes.
Um, so I'll definitely put that link in there in the description as well for our listeners to have access to as well. Um, and I just want to ask like one or two last questions, and this may also be written in your book. I'm not too sure,
Sure.
but what are some things that our listeners can take away in terms of like some of the social stigmas that exist around disability, or especially around brittle bone disease, that you would like to address and have our listeners like take away from this?
I think the biggest one that I encountered is that disabled people are not there's nothing wrong with what's up here. And I think so often we see a disabled person, especially someone of short stature, a little person. And this is what I get when I'm in the store. Okay, you ready? Somebody will say, "Hi, do you need some help, honey?" It's like, okay, I'm not deaf, not hard of hearing, and I'm not, dumb. Talk to me like I'm an adult. I'm 43 years old. We're humans, and I know that's so over said, but it can't be overstated. There's no correlation between what's wrong with someone physically in most cases and any mental acuity.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's so sad that there's just such a lack of understanding about these things. And you would think though after like it being so talked about at this point, there are a gazillion videos out there. There is social media.
Right.
There's access to all this information. Yet people are still so misinformed. And it really makes you wonder how? Like why? Like what what are we being exposed to? Like what is social media exposing us to? Is it that we're just not coming across this? Is it just not being represented enough? Or is it that the wrong message is being delivered to people?
I think it's a little of both, but with regard to the wrong message, my friend just posted online, she found on YouTube, she had found somebody that was hunting essentially little people in stores and filming them without their consent and making commentary. It was vile and disgusting, but about their bodies, mocking them. And, and was using discriminatory language, words that should not even be used anymore. And I'm like, there's a person that finds this entertaining. And not only is there a person that finds this entertaining, he's got an entire account and viewers, and this is so disheartening.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like that the extent that individuals, not everyone obviously, certain individuals maybe would go to entertain
Right.
without regard of the things that matter, the things that are important. Yeah. It's almost like what can we give viewers that's going to give them that like shock factor or that's going to, just make them laugh, but there's that human element that's sort of being lost in the process, right? Yeah. What can listeners do to better to be more inclusive and to be more empathetic and, supportive?
Have a conversation. I always make it a point when I'm in a store to talk to people. We went through COVID where nobody was really talking to anybody. But if I'm in a store and I see somebody staring, or a little girl, there was one instance where a little girl was staring at me, and her mother like dragged her away by like the arm. I thought her arm was gonna fall off. Poor kid. And I went up to them and I said, hold on, what's your name? And I do the whole introduction thing and, try to humanize myself. It's not my job to make you include me, but if I'm the only person that has a disability, or the only little person you'll ever see, I don't want it to be a negative interaction.
Mm.
So just realize if there's somebody that you see, not that everybody's going to want to talk to you, because
Mhm.
half of them won't, half of them want to get in Target and get out. But if there's somebody you see and your kid has questions, don't shame the kid for having questions. The
Mm.
kid is being human, and what you're going to do is you're going to raise a person who thinks this is bad.
Right. Yeah, by shutting down that conversation,
Mhm.
you're basically not
A simple
allowing.
hello,
Yeah.
you have no idea how many kids I'll say, like, I'll see them staring or whatever, and the mother's, like, freaking out in the corner. I'm like, "Hi, what's your name? Oh, what's your name?" What and then I find something common, I'm like, "What do you, what's your favorite cookie?" And then whatever they say, I'll be like, "Oh, that's mine. That's my favorite too." Guess what? Look, I'm just like you. We have so much in common, things like that.
Mm.
Let's raise better humans.
Right. Do you think that this is like possible, like saying this sort of on behalf of everyone, or is this more of a personal thing? Like if I was to, I don't know, approach somebody else, that they would want it to be the same way? Could you say that you're speaking on behalf of everyone?
No, I know I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I know we want as a community, and when I say community, I mean disabled community. We want awareness. I know for a fact because I've heard it in the forums and stuff, for people to stop talking to us like we don't understand you and stop yelling
Mm.
because we hear you. I don't
Yeah.
understand why you think 3'11" equates to my ears don't work.
Yeah.
Because they will yell at you. It's like, how, what?
Yeah,
Would
and
speak
that's
very
just so
slow. No, I
frustrating.
understand
Hmm.
fully.
Yeah. Uh, and yeah, just one last thing. I remember once watching a video as well of somebody who was wheelchair, who also said something that, oftentimes when they are, for example, like crossing a road or something, like generally people around them will take it upon themselves to help them,
Right.
but without actually asking if they
Okay.
need the help. And I remember really vividly this person saying, like, I have been living my life on my own this whole time. Like, what gives you the right to come across me and feel like now you can help me, or you that I need your help when I've been doing it on my own this whole time? Is this something that you resonate with?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
I remember when I was in the wheelchair, I made my mom take my handlebars off because I was so sick of, and I was young. I was so sick of friendly people wanting to help, just walking up behind me and like pushing me. It's like, hello, no, especially in
Mhm.
school. It's like,
Mm.
no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My
Tanya,
friend, he's a quadruple amputee, and he's in a wheelchair, and I'll ask him before I get a door, before I open a door or push his chair. I'm like, do you want the help? Because he's a guy. It's like, I don't know, maybe there's some machismo.
yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to to this book as well. I'm gonna definitely get it on Amazon too. And for listeners, please do, show some support, have a read, and learn a little bit um about Brittlebone, but also about this attitude on life. I think this is the thing that I definitely take away from this too as well. Like, how to sort of turn that mindset around from woe is me to, hey man, like life can be what you make of it. Like how you can just turn it around and like make every moment count, make every moment like, you know, worthy, purposeful, right? And so yeah, I think there's so much our listeners can take away from today's conversation, Tanya. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the episode and would like to help support the show, please follow and subscribe. You can rate and review your feedback on any of our platforms listed in the description. I'd like to recognize our guests who are vulnerable and open to share their life experiences with us. Thank you for showing us we're human. Also, a thank you to our team who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen.
Chris Trzynski, Stefan Menzel.
The show would be nothing without you. I'm Jenica, host and writer of the show, and you're listening to Multispective.